Those of you who are here at the venue and those of you who are viewing the online broadcast, hello. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today at the symposium. My name is Masanobu Iwaki. I am an administrative director of WIAS. Nice to see you all. I'll be playing the role as a moderator. First and foremost, we would like to now announce the commencement of the 15th anniversary of the symposium, WIAS, titled Well-Being in the Time of Uncertainty. First and foremost, we would like to ask the director of the WIAS, Professor AKAO, to provide us with an opening remark. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome and thank you for joining the WIAS 15th Anniversary Symposium entitled Well-Being in the Time of Uncertainty. I'm pleased and honored to be opening this event to mark the 15th anniversary of WIAS, the Waseda Institute for Advanced Study. The WIAS was established in September 2006, a new concept research institute at Waseda University. The aim is to contribute to academia and society by providing the organization where young researchers can devote themselves to their research in an independent environment. We have so far gathered promising young researchers in a broad range of sciences, from humanities, social sciences, and engineering to natural sciences from all over the world. Fortunately, the position of research member in WIAS has broadly attracted the interests of young researchers. As a result, the selection process is competitive, and we have been able to have many top-class, excellent young researchers. In addition, we also have a program to provide the position of visiting researchers and visiting scholars to promote research collaboration with internationally recognized researchers at Waseda University. We have provided research members with a good research environment, opportunities to exchange their ideas and findings in diverse disciplines, opportunities for research collaboration with distinguished researchers in Waseda and Japan, and educational experience at Waseda University. I believe that the assemblage of talented young researchers and several programs in WIAS produces a synergetic effect to enhance cutting-edge research at Waseda University. It also contributes to Waseda University establishing its position as a world-level research university. This 2nd anniversary symposium invites the distinguished researchers as keynote speakers. Dr. Galizia, the director of Zukunft Kolleg, an advanced research institute at the University of Konstanz, Germany. Dr. Awaga, the director of the Institute for Advanced Research, Nagoya University, Japan, and Dr. ARIMURA, the former director of our institute, WIAS. I sincerely appreciate their generous acceptance of our invitation. In the 5 round-table sessions, the WIAS research members and the alums will discuss their session topic with their diverse specialties. The chairs of the sessions are the alums and the current and the former vice directors of WIAS. I appreciate their involvement and opportunities. This well-organized symposium has been prepared with the tremendous efforts of the staff of WIAS, including the former director, Dr. ARIMURA, and the former vice directors, Dr. Yamamoto and Dr. Ogata. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic forced us to postpone this anniversary event by 1 year. However, overcoming several difficulties, we have now opened this symposium. I appreciate the efforts and services of those WIAS people. Finally, I wish all participants pleasant listening and fruitful discussions. Through them, I hope participants know the achievement of WIAS developed since 2006. Thank you.
AKAO 先生、どうもありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Professor
続き
AKAO.
まして、
Next,
長講演1、
we would like to begin the keynote speech, Carbon Neutrality and Social Science, the Role of Economics in Shaping Public Policy.
有村俊秀先生より
We'll
お話しいただ
have
きます。
Dr. ARIMURA,
高等研究所の前所長でもあります有村
Professor
先生は
at School of Political Science and Economics of Waseda University. He is a former director of
経済産業省
WIAS,
検討会委員などを歴任され
and he has served on many Japanese governments' committee on educational issues, and is currently president of SEEPS, Society for Environmental Economics and Policy Studies, and director of the Research Institute for Environmental Economics and Management at Waseda University, and faculty
そ
fellow
れでは
at
有
RIETI.
村先生よろしくお願いいたします。
Dr. ARIMURA, please.
Iwaki-san, thank you for such a nice introduction. It is my honor to be a keynote speaker for this session at the 15th anniversary of WIAS. I would like to congratulate Director Professor AKAO and Associate Directors Professor Yamamoto and Professor Tokoro and WIAS researchers and WIAS staff on the 15th anniversary. And before joining the WIAS, I was impressed by the dedication by the Professor Miyajima, who was a director then, and who made a WIAS as a very prestigious research institute in Japan and internationally. And so it was my honor to be a part of WIAS as associate director when I joined. And I was lucky to work with Professor Maeda, a former director, and Professor Takemura, who was working as associate director. Then, after 2 years, I was promoted to a director. And again, I was lucky to work with Professor Yamamoto and Professor Ogata, two diligent associate directors and very hardworking WIAS staff. So today, I would like to discuss my research topics, finally, after listening to many presentations from early career researchers. The title of my talk is Carbon Neutrality and Social Science and the Role of Economics in Shaping Public Policy. So this is the content of my presentation. I will start from climate change and well-being, and then moving to carbon neutrality and technological innovation. Then I will discuss role of economics, and also I will touch up on the political economy of carbon pricing. And then I would like to discuss interaction of economics with psychology and sociology. And also, I want to touch up on the importance of historical approach. And finally, I will discuss energy and well-being. That's one of my research area topics. Okay. So this graph is a picture that I took from the IPCC 6 assessment report, which I'm partly involved as a reviewer for this report. And this shows that actually the temperature has already increased by 1% from the pre-industrial period. Let me do this. And if we do not work on the emission reduction, it could be a 5-degree increase of the temperature by the end of the century. And the world is working very hard to control this temperature increase. But still, there are lots of things that we have to work on before we can reduce the carbon emissions. And this figure is the one that I took from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the US. And it shows that how people will react to the temperature increase and humidity changes. And see that, if we really consider summer in Tokyo, we often see the 34 degrees in Tokyo. And if we have a 5 degrees increase, so we will move from this area to this area. And then we are facing this orange part or red areas, depending on the humidities. So which shows that, climate change actually has very strong negative impacts on our well-being, even with just change of the temperature is giving us a hard time in the future. And actually, I think we are already realizing this is already happening. So which implies that reduction of greenhouse gas emission is really important and necessary step. Okay. So now I would like to focusing on the carbon neutral part, or how we can reduce carbon emissions. And I will start from the technological innovation start. So this is the graphs that I created from the data from the Ministry of the Environment. After 2013, we started to reduce emissions. And in 2016, Prime Minister Abe announced that we will reduce emission by 80% by the 2050. Actually, this was a big surprise to me. We cannot. It looks as if it's a very big step for Japanese economy. But after the scientific findings reported by IPCC, the Japanese government also announced carbon neutrality by 2050 and 46% reduction by 2030. So this is a really big challenge that we are facing. And for your information, Waseda University has also announced carbon neutrality target. We did, let me ask this. How many of you knew that Waseda University has a carbon neutral target? Good. I'm so lucky that maybe half of the attendants know that we made this announcement. Yeah, so Waseda is supposed to achieve the carbon neutrality by the 2032 or so. And to achieve that carbon neutral target or 2030 target, Japanese government made some energy plan. And currently we have 18% of electricity coming from renewable energies in Japan. We successfully increased from after the earthquake, but the number is still much lower compared to Germany. But we are hoping to increase the renewables to 37% by 2030. But if you look at this blue part, the Japanese government is also considering introducing hydrogen and ammonia as a source of electricity power. This is a very new technology, so we have to have some technological innovations. So this is a big challenge. And even more, for the 2050 target, Japanese government and the industries are discussing carbon capture, usage, and storage. So they call it CCUS. And CCUS stands for carbon capture and utilization and storage. So which means that the industry is going to capture the CO2 emissions from power plants or steel plants, and either we will store it or we will use it. For example, and they are calling it carbon recycling. And they are considering to create chemicals from the carbon that we capture in this industrial process. We are creating fuels from the carbon we capture after the combustion of coal or natural gas, or even a mineral such as concrete products. So there are lots of expectation on the technological innovations. And this is the figure that is shown by the Japanese government. On the, this is the kind of a target that they have for the 2050. And here, if we look at the non-electricity part, the Japanese government has high expectation on hydrogen, intermethanation, and synthetic fuel. These are not still available yet. So we have to have a breakthrough of technologies and R&Ds and a lot of hard work by engineers before we can really use these technologies. So technological innovation is very important. And if we look at the electricity part, we can see that CCUS, or carbon recycling, this is unknown technology yet. We really don't know if we can achieve this. So looks like that all of these are talking about technologies. But by looking at this figure, we can see some role of economics. So this is 2050 planning by the Japanese government. So we are hoping to reduce emissions. But by 2050, I think we expect that there are some sectors that still emit carbons, like maybe from the cement industry or steel industries. So we cannot make it to zero. But we can offset that emissions by working on the sink or removable of carbon dioxide. Like if you have like a forest that can contribute to the absorption of carbon dioxide. And we expect that there is a trading between those who emit and those who contribute to the sink and removable. So here we expect there is a market of carbon dioxide. So there is a role of economics. So that's one thing I would like to mention. Okay, so now I would like to move on to the economics part, my specialty part. So let me start from negative externality. So economists consider environmental issue as negative externality. And this figure is basically shows a very simple view of the market by economists. So there is a driver who wants to use gasoline, and he or she visits the gas stations, and they pay a few thousand yens to get the gasoline. And if we look at this market mechanisms make use of incentives by the consumers or producers, and market works efficiently. However, if you drive vehicles, if you use gasoline, you will emit carbon dioxide, which cause climate change. And unfortunately, the drivers who are contributing to climate change is not paying the damage that we are causing or they are causing. And this damage part is actually external to the market. It's not inside the market. And economists believe that that's why environmental problems happens. This is considered as one of the market failure, and we call it negative externality. So from this view, the prescription by the economist is very simple. The problems happen because the environmental issue is outside of the market. So let us internalize the environmental issue into the market. So incorporating environmental issue into the market is just one solution by economists. How can we do this? We can achieve this target goal by putting a price on the carbon. That's what we call carbon pricing. And there are, roughly speaking, there are two ways to putting a price on the carbon. The first one is carbon tax. So government can collect tax from those who are emitting CO2. And by doing so, the polluters must pay additional costs for the carbon. And William Nordhaus at Yale University, who won the Nobel Prize in 2018, he actually promoted this idea of a carbon tax even in the 1970s. He published a book on the rational use of energies, and he's the first economist who incorporated energy sectors in economics modeling. In that book, he actually promoted the idea of a carbon tax in 1979. So that's even 10 years before the IPCC was formed. So this is one way. The second way of putting a price on the carbon is emission trading schemes. It is also known as ETS. And in this way, we create a market for emission allowances. So the government actually set up the cap of the emissions, and those who emit CO2 must have permits or allowance from the government. And if they have extra allowances, they can sell to the market. If they need more, they can buy from the market. By this exchange, we will see the price on the permit, which is the price of the carbon. And the European Union started one of the biggest ETS since 2005. And now even China or Korea have their own ETS. And the advantage of this mechanism is that actually we can achieve emission reduction target at the minimum cost. And what will happen when we put a price on the carbon? First, we expect energy savings takes place. You are going, if you see the increase of electricity bill, you will try to purchase the energy efficient electric appliances or turn off the lights, just like you see in the classroom of Waseda now. Or we will expect fuel switching from coal to natural gas. So carbon dioxide comes from the combustion of the fossil fuel. But coal, the carbon content of coal is twice of the natural gas. So when we put the price on the carbon, price of coal increase sharply, but the natural gas price increase only half of that. So we expect fuel switching. And we also expect the switching from renewable energies. And also the innovation, we expect electric vehicle or hydrogen. We are expecting electric vehicles are almost there in the market, but hydrogen has a high expectation. We have high expectation on hydrogen as a future technology, and Tokyo Metropolitan Government is promoting this. And for this, actually, the role of finance is also important. But so by putting carbon pricing, we can expect the economy moving toward carbon neutrality. So that is one role of economics. But another role we have in economics is that we provide evidence for the policy. So in my research, I look at, so in Japan, we have emission trading schemes in Tokyo and Saitama. But some people are dubious that, they don't trust that this kind of mechanism works in reality. So what we can do as economists is that we can provide evidence that if this new policy instrument really worked in the real world. And this is a book that I published with Professor Matsumoto at Aoyama Gakuin University, and you can freely download it. And we are lucky to have the award on this book in 2021. And so actually, Waseda University is also facing emission trading scheme by Tokyo Metropolitan Government. And also the Saitama ETS is putting the cap on the emissions from manufacturing facilities from Saitama area. And in this book and some research papers, we investigated the effectiveness of ETS. And using facility level data, what we found is that emission trading scheme has contributed 6.8% reductions of emissions in the first 4 years. And it is true that other factors, for example, electricity price increase, also contributed 6.2% reductions. But what we found is that more than half of the reduction from ETS. And we also found that there is some ETS effect in the university buildings. And my research team member, Professor Hamamoto at Tokyo University, examined the effectiveness of Saitama ETS using facility level data from Saitama. And by conducting this kind of research, economists can contribute to provide evidence for discussion on policy making. So that's, I think, one important role that economists have. And actually, looking at the early career research at the WIAS, I saw that many young researchers are now working on this kind of approach, health economics or development economics. And that has been a very important role. So now I would like to move to the other social science parts. The first, I would like to start from political economy or political science discussions. So this map I took from the World Bank, and World Bank is following the development of carbon pricing all over the world. And EU ETS is the most famous emission trading schemes, a market for carbon. And if you look at the US, we see this empty spot. And we only see the market on the east and the west side. So this is what's happening in the US. So in the Northeast states, they have an ETS called Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. But in California, they have an ETS. I think many of my generation, many people, my generation remember the famous actor Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was actually once worked as a governor of California. Even though he's a Republican, he was very strong favor of environmental policy. So he contributed to create this carbon market, but nothing in the middle. So what's happening here? And by now, you probably heard many times in the news media. So this is a result of the US presidential election in 2020. And if you look at the East Coast and the West Coast, they are the blue states. So they are Democrat states. So it looks like the political situation has strong influence on the adoption of carbon pricing. And looking at Japan, I mentioned that Korea and China already have nationwide ETS. For the China, it's only for the power sector, but still nationwide. But in Japan, we only have ETS in Tokyo and Saitama. Why? Well, actually, this is also related to the political situation between the relationship between the government and I think industry. In Tokyo and Saitama, we have no big power plants. We have no big steel mills. But in Chiba, Kanagawa, Yokohama, Kawasaki, they have very big power plants or steel mills. So I think this industrial structure has something to do with this relationship. And finally, on the environmental and climate justice part. Well, the climate change is caused by the developed countries and in our generations. But there is always discussion who should pay the cost. It should be a North countries or a South country or developing countries who are causing a growth, whose emission is growing faster than developed countries. And also, there is a discussion on the present generation versus future generation, as you can see the Greta Thunberg's pictures. So this is research area is known as climate justice, and I think it's a very important field of political science. And also, psychology and sociology also related to the carbon neutral stuff. So together with Professor Katayama at the School of Commerce, we have been studying on the how we can promote energy savings. And for example, on the promotion of energy saving practice regarding the air conditioner use. And in summer, government used to promote 28 degrees Celsius setting summer. And now in the winter, 20 degrees Celsius or lower. And you currently see that a lot if you go to the classroom. And the simple solution by economists is, just introduce carbon tax. But we also realize that actually social norms can play an important role in promoting carbon neutrality or energy savings. So social norm, let me explain what I mean by the social norm. So suppose that before you see any information from the university, you are not working on, or you're not paying attention to the temperature of the air conditioning. But now your university office tells you that you have to lower the temperature during the winter. So 20-degree setting in the winter. And if you do so, maybe your friend also see that, oh, he's doing it, then I have to do it. And if friend A is doing it, friend B also start consider that, okay, I have to do this. And this is called kind of a peer effects or social norm. And economists are, in the past 10 years or 15 years, working very hard on this. But this idea always comes from, of course, came from the sociology and psychologies. And there is a famous experiment by O-Power, electric power company in the US. And what they did was that when they sent electricity bill, they also showed your consumption and your neighborhood consumptions and your efficient neighbors. So they were comparing your consumption to your neighbors. And if your performance, if consumption is lower than the average, you get great marks. And interestingly enough, these experiments worked very well. And actually, they found that 2% energy saving was achieved just by giving this social norm information. So psychology and sociological concepts are very useful in changing people's behaviors and contributing to carbon neutrality. And also, I want to mention that economics can be a complement of engineering studies. In economics, there is a phenomenon called energy efficiency gap. So even if engineer came up with a very efficient technologies, this kind of new technology are not installed or not diffused right away. Even if it is cost-wise, it makes more sense to invest. And what we found is that, well, there may be an impact factor information or principal agent issues or liquidity constraints that companies are facing. So by identifying these kind of causes, economics can complement the development of new technologies. And we can work together to promote toward carbon neutrality. And I would like to also mention the importance of historical approach. Well, economists do not necessarily like history, but I like history. My undergraduate major was history of science, and that may be why. And when we discuss the carbon neutrality, it comes with transition, and the transition of sub-energy intensive industries. For example, this is a picture that I took from the homepage of these steel companies. And in Japan, there are some cities that are heavily relying on energy-intensive sectors. Muroran City in Hokkaido is one of them. But they have to change their industrial structure. They have to move to coal to hydrogen. And that's what European Union or Japanese government has a strong interest to achieve carbon neutrality. But this is a big challenge. And if they fail it, their economy will suffer. And we had actually a similar experience in 1960s. Japan experienced energy revolutions in 1960s. In 1950s, Japanese economy made use of coal and steel heavily. But in 1960s, they found that it's cheaper to import oil. So they closed a lot of coal mines in the 1960s. So some cities, many cities with coal mines actually faced very tough economic situations. And coal mine in Joban area, Ibaraki and Fukushima, they also faced closures in coal mines in 1976. But this city successfully turned into the resort city, Joban Hawaiian Center, or Spa Resort Hawaii. And why Hawaii in Fukushima? But it worked. And other cities, like maybe city of Yubari, also had a similar problem, and they still had big problems. So we may have this kind of a situation when we are moving to carbon neutral society. So history can contribute to the carbon neutrality. And finally, I want to touch upon the energy and well-being issues. So the people in the rural area of developing countries are suffering from indoor pollutions, because they burn biomass such as cow dung or wood, and that caused health issues. And if we move from biomass to kerosene or gas or electricity, then sure, we can improve the well-being of those who are cooking at this kind of rural village. And this biomass causes deforestation and soil erosion. And also it comes with gender issues, because those who are suffering from typically women who cook at home or children. The question is how we can improve this kind of situation. Can we improve the situation if their income increase, or education is more important, or social norm may be more important, or information provision is more important. So there are lots of research to be done. So let me conclude my presentation. So carbon neutrality requires technology innovations for sure, but at the same time, social science can play an important role in achieving carbon neutrality. And as an economist, I have to say that economics is very important. But I have also mentioned that political science or psychology or sociology or even history can be very important in discussing carbon neutrality. So that means that interdisciplinary approach is necessary and very important in promoting research on carbon neutrality. And so that means that WIAS can play an important role to achieve research on carbon neutrality. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.